Hi, this is a quick video to show you how to use the table and charts bit of the map. So when you load up the map, I have it so that the table automatically appears at the bottom. So most of the time you actually probably want to minimize it just to see the map more, but that's this little tab at the bottom that goes a darker turquoise when you hover over it. So if we expand that, you'll see that if you grab the edge of it and it makes those two little lines, you could pull this to make the map smaller to have more space for the table. But the current layer that's showing isn't actually showing any data in the table because it's tied to the timeline, but we'll have a different video about the timeline. So here I just want to show you how you can add additional data layers to the table. So here, if we go to something like sewer network, you have to go down to an individual layer. So the sewer network is the group. And when I click on the group, there aren't many options when I click on the little three buttons. But when I click on the actual layer at the bottom, you can see that I have more options here, one of which is the details page, which is handy to navigate to additional details about the layer. But there's also this add to table button. So if we go to that, now we can see the data that sits behind this map. And so that's the table. And I'll keep this expanded because we're going to be using this bottom section. So with the charts we have big buttons and small buttons. So with the big buttons, if an entry has a big button, at the moment they all have big buttons, but we'll probably add charts in the future that don't have these big buttons. So if you click on the big part of the button, so here we're clicking on domestic EPCs, that will take you to a graph here that shows the domestic EPCs. And again, click this one, so now we get non-domestic EPCs, heat pump installations, and some workforce projections. So these are just data tables that you might want to look at that add additional context to just the maps that you're seeing. And the difference between the big buttons and then the small plus buttons is here and under the chart section, the small plus buttons will open an additional window. And so here, this additional window is to really dive into those workforce projection numbers. This is the type of data where it's actually more helpful to have this in charts. And so there's still a map here, but it will be small compared to making the charts larger. So I'll just wait for things to load in. Because it's a new page, it has triggered the map to reload. And as the map gets larger, it does take longer to reload. But here you can see we have our map small, and we still have a legend to show you what's in the map. And then we have a table here that is tied to the timeline. And then the second table is also tied to the timeline. So if we move that to 2036, which is the peak year, so we can see how our jobs are affected over time. You can also play it forward in the timeline. It just will need to have this little refresh between each one. So I almost find it easier to actually just pick up and move the timeline to where you want to see it for the data. You can also see the map is also being affected by the timeline. So here we're seeing the local authorities get darker as we have additional jobs added for those years of retrofitting. So if we go to actually the third graph here, this is the one that actually isn't affected by the timeline, but shows you that annual increase in the total number of jobs over time. This is rather specific to this specific pop out, but if you click on a year, that will now show you the total, because it's a bit odd that it doesn't actually, when you hover over, you can only see the numbers for each of those individual sections, not if you wanted to see, I mean, we can read from the graph that this one is just over 25,000, but if you wanted to know exactly how much, that's the number there. But we might have additional videos that show the each of these pop-out windows as well. But if we come back to our main window, if we want to return to the table, we can just click that Return to Table button, or Close to just entirely close out the charts. But I just wanted to show you one other thing that you can use the charts for, which is a type of dynamic filtering. So here we're looking at non-domestic EPCs. So let me go turn on the non-domestic EPCs in the map. So there you can see I'm using non-domestic because it loads a lot faster than the domestic, because the domestic is a very large file. But here we're seeing all the EPCs ranging from A to G, but we can actually use this chart interactively to filter the data on the map. So if I click on C, well, that's made the graph not very interesting because now we're only seeing a bar of C, but you can see in the map, we've now filtered the map to be only an EPC of C. And if I click on that C again, then it will go back to showing me all of them and it unfilters the map. Now we have filters in the map as well, so you could have that same functionality by using these filters here. So here we have non-domestic EPC. So say that I want to see everything that's below C. So that will show me D through G. It's filtered to only the reddish colors in the map, as well as it's also filtered the chart here. The advantage of that is we can filter on multiple things versus I can only click on A. Technically, if I could click Control, I would be able to click on multiple, but it already starts to filter before I even get a chance to click on it. So again, this only lets me look at one letter at a time, but if I wanted to use the filters here for a more sophisticated view of the filtering. And then a bit of an elaborate way of filtering, but if we go to, let's see, heat pump installations, because I've set this one up, and if we turn, well, I can go ahead and turn on those heat pumps so that you can see it in the map, though it is only at the local authority level. So let's see, heat pump installations, and this is cumulative heat pumps. So this is showing it at a local authority level. And if we then turn on the local authority boundaries, again, this is a bit of a sneaky way of trying to do filtering based on the local authority. And so here, if we click on just Edinburgh, and then note the y-axis of the graph, so that was about 1,000 when we were looking at all the local authorities, and now this filters it to only show the data for Edinburgh. So here you can see the y-axis has changed. So now we're just looking at Edinburgh. And then I click on East Lothian, and again, you'll see the y-axis change from all the local authorities to now showing the data only for East Lothian. So this is one way to do a type of dynamic filtering within the map itself. I have it set on it being based on this layer under maps for the local authority boundary. So if you were only to click on, if you just have the SCIS one turned on, that won't do the filtering for you. But this is also the type of thing that we will have in the pop-out version of this as well. So if you want to do the type of really detailed filtering, I would suggest going over into the pop-out version, but it could be that there's a reason that you want to be doing that filtering on the main version of the map as well. But that's the general idea behind the charts.